Hey there, friends. Thank you for watching Fouch and Friends, interviews with your favorite gospel music artist. Today's interview features Joe Bonsall of the Oak Ridge Boys. If it's your first time, please hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the future interviews that we release. Joe has had a fantastic career with the Oak Ridge Boys. He's been there for like 45 plus years. We had a great conversation. He even tells us all what it was that Johnny Cash told the Oak Ridge Boys back in 1974. So here is Joe.
Hey Joe, thanks for being with me today, man. I appreciate it.
Matthew, it's an honor, man. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. I've to be productive, I've kind of started doing a lot of interviews just remotely. I don't know if you've ever watched On the Couch with Fouch before. Probably not. I've invited you before. We couldn't work out the details, but when I started doing these remotely, I was like, I'm gonna shoot a message to Joe and see if he has any availability right now.
Well, right now, let's see. I'm home today. I was home yesterday. I'm probably going to be home tomorrow.
That's right.
I'm right here.
It's great. Now,
Like
where are
you are.
you? Where do you live?
I live in Hendersonville, Tennessee, man. I live on Old Hickory Lake out in Indian Lake and area of Hendersonville, probably 10 minutes from the Oaks office and where we leave from normally when remember when we used to leave.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're all just we were talking about this before we started the video. I've been in gospel music since 2004, so I've been traveling and singing for 16 years, and you've been doing it several years longer than that. And I had asked you, man, you ever seen anything crazy like this before?
No, none of us have, man. I thought we'd seen everything with 9/11, and I thought I'd seen everything with Vietnam and everything that went with it. The late 60s were pretty strange, and I was growing up then, but uh, never nothing like this. This is just incredible. I mean, people all over the world are shut in right now. We're told to stay home. We're told to stay home except for when we have to leave, and then the stores are all closed except for those that are open. And it's just kind of confusing. The church is closed, but the liquor store is open.
Yeah.
It's just very, very confusing times right now. I hope we're going to pull out of it and pull out of it soon so we can all get back to being our regular selves again.
Yeah, what are you missing the most about not being able to be on the road out there with all your friends around the country?
Well, I miss the guys. I
Yeah.
mean, we've been in touch. This week has been kind of a birthday week. Our bass singer Richard had a birthday this week. Dwayne Allen had a birthday yesterday. God, we're getting old.
Wow.
And Ronnie Fairchild, our piano player, whose father Tommy played for this group back in the 60s,
Yeah.
Ronnie just had a birthday, and I've got a birthday coming up, and it's just like astounding to me how fast time's going by. And I miss singing, man. I miss singing. I miss getting out there on stage and singing to a full house full of people. I mean, on March 15th, man, we did our last show. We didn't know it was going to be our last show. We were up in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina at the Alabama Theater, and it was full and everything was great. And there's a big honking show and stuff was starting to happen and accelerate a bit. In fact, some people were even putting us down for having a show on
Yeah.
March 15th when I guess a lot of people had already shut down. The Alabama Theater was sold out. We did our show. We came home, parked the buses, and they haven't left since.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been crazy. And we were actually in your guys' stomping ground, Branson, Missouri, for an event on the 15th and 16th of March. And we came home from there to Nashville and same thing, shut the bus down. And it's been sitting ever since as well. What's been, for those that are watching this, Joe, give these folks a little bit of your musical journey, your history, where you started out at. Why is music in your blood? Why do you love it so much?
Well, first of all, I might give you a blatant plug here and plug my book, On the Road with the Oak Ridge Boys. All answers are in that book. It's how the Oak Ridge Boys got from point A to B to C to D, how we do what we do, how we've done what we've done. And I wish I had a new chapter to talk about how we're going to do what we're going to do. But On the Road with the Oak Ridge Boys answers all the questions. And real quick for me, I grew up in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And I was pretty much a hoodlum in my early teens. And I was really going the wrong way. A couple of good people got in touch with me and I had faith in me, influenced me. Bunch of church kids talked me into going to a gospel concert and said, well, go with us to this concert. And if you don't like it, you'll never have to go to another thing again. And beside that, one of the main guys there from the church had a 61 Buick convertible. It was white with a red interior. And I said, hey, man, if you put that top down, I'll go. So I wanted to ride in the Buick. So I guess I'm few people in the world that was saved by a Buick. But,
That's awesome.
I went out to Ardmore, Pennsylvania, a suburb of Philly, and I saw the Eastman Quartet. I saw the Couriers, who have been my heroes ever since. And I saw the Blackwoods with J.D. Sumner. And I thought it was some of the greatest stuff I've. Well, I started going to gospel concerts. I started attacking this one record store downtown Philly. I had to take the L to get down there and find gospel quartet records from groups from everywhere. And I got like those old Statesman records, old Blackwoods, old Oak Ridge Boys. And I just thought it was great. I started my own quartet. We were the Faith Four Quartet, and we were absolutely horrid. We were no good at all. We all bought suits alike before we even had a date. At church basement booked, and we had suits alike.
That is awesome, man.
South Street in Philly, and bought these gray shark skin numbers. Tried to look like the Couriers. We did. So, man, that was the beginning of it for me, and I became good friends with Richard Sturban back then because he was working at Gimbel's, and he loved gospel music. I'd seen him with the Keystone Quartet. We became friends, and without making a long story even longer, Richard called me when I was 19 and said, hey, the Keystone are back together again because they had broke up for a while, and we're going to go full-time and sing. Do you want to come out with us? Whoa, I left my job at the sugar factory, joined the Keystone Quartet, and proceeded to starve to death for 5 years. In fact, we starved to death so much that Richard finally quit the group with 3 sons and a wife and joined JD and the Stamps. Then they went off back in Elvis back in the early 70s.
Yeah.
And I couldn't find another bass singer at the time, so I just hired a band and made us like the Oak Ridge Boys. I thought the Oaks were cool. I thought the Oaks were the coolest thing ever, and I wanted to be like them. So I even started promoting the Oak Ridge Boys. I'd bring the Oak Ridge Boys to Corey, Pennsylvania, Hamilton, Ontario, Buffalo, New York, and promote shows. And then the Oaks would reciprocate, and William Lee, who was Bill Golden back then, would book us on shows in the South with them. And Dwayne Allen started a record label and did 10 albums on my Keystone group. So we've all been friends a long time. Then in 1972, Richard left the Stamps, joined the Oaks. In 73, they called me because Willie Wynn was leaving and asked me if I wanted to join the Oak Ridge Boys. And man, oh man, I was on that next flight from Buffalo, New York at the time to Nashville. And I've been with the Oak Ridge Boys ever since. I was 25 years old. And I'm about to turn 72. So that's how long I've been an Oak Ridge boy.
That is phenomenal, man. That's great. I had just not ever heard your history of how you came to the Oak Ridge Boys, man. Just so long as I've known, you've just always been with the Oaks, right? I mean, that's.
Yo, it seems like it. Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Probably your whole lifetime I've been with the Oaks.
42 years or whatever.
Oh, it's more like 47.
Man, that's awesome. What's been the
and
thing?
I'm the new guy.
Right.
I got to carry everybody's bags still.
What's been the thing you feel like that's made the Oaks just a mainstay in what you guys have done?
Well, I think it's energy, and we learned that in gospel. I mean, we learned how to get out there and pound it, right? I mean, you didn't take no prisoners in gospel. It's how you survived. If you sold the most records in the back of the auditorium, you made a little money enough to make paychecks. You know that. And back in those days, the Oak Ridge Boys would leave it all on the stage, even in gospel. And even after, during some of those transition days when a lot of gospel fans, didn't like us at all, we still went out there and left everything on the stage. And we went through a couple of years of gray areas there where people like Jimmy Dean and Johnny Cash and a few others really helped us out. We met our manager, Jim Halsey, in 75. He said, you guys need to really, if you want to be serious about singing country music, and we were starving in gospel anyway, we had no gospel dates in the book at all. He said, if you want to be serious, you need to start singing country songs. And we need to get you off the Columbia records where you're just singing songs about the earth and the wind and the fire and the birds and the sky, and you're just not getting it. And he put us together with a great producer, booked us a bunch of dates to keep our head above water. And as after all those 77 through 1980, we had all this great success. But then in 81, Elvira hit, and it turned us in from being a well-known. Did I lose you?
No, you're still there, man.
Okay. It took us from being a well-known well-known country music act to a household name. And everything's been, gangbuster since.
That's awesome, man.
And now we're old guys. Now we're the old guys.
What is something, talking about being the old guys, what is something you would tell some young bucks out there? And I'm sure you've talked to many of them over the years backstage. What's some advice you give those guys?
So many people are trying to make it in the music industry, and it's hard. I don't care if it's gospel, country, rock and roll, man. It's a hard industry to make it in because everybody wants to be there. Everybody wants to do it. And my thing is, if you are moving people with what you're doing, if your songs, if your show, if your talent is moving them, you've got to move people. And if you're moving them, you've got a chance. If you're not moving them at all, sell shoes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very simple. You got to move them, man. You got to move them. I don't care if you make them cry, make them laugh, make them throw babies in the air, stand up and cheer, sit down and cheer. Just move them in some way with what you're doing. You've got to be able to do that, or you have no real future in this business.
And that's to me, that's connect with them.
Yeah.
You gotta figure out what is your point of connection with them between who you are, what you do, your story, your music, whatever it is. And if you can use that point of connection to move them, then you got it. And that's what I was just talking with someone the other day about, just how, I think it was Michael Booth, just how important, connecting with the audience is. And that's how you move them, is give that point of connection every night, regardless of where you are. And some nights is harder than others, right?
And I'll tell you the truth, you never need to stop doing it either. I mean, you can be around like us for years and years and years, and now we're the old guys. And most people come out to hear us. They know you. They know the songs. It's like a big party. But you can't let up, man. You can't, as Richard would say, you can't rest upon your laurels. He says that all the time, once a day. And so you can't rest upon your laurels.
What has been something that's helped you keep your voice, man, over the years? Is there any exercises or anything that you do to help keep your voice fresh and as sharp as it can be?
I think sleep, man. I think sleep is the key. I think that when you sing and you go out there and you pound the show for an hour, 40 minutes to 2 hours or whatever you're doing that night, your voice is not electronic. It's muscles and stuff, and you got to rest them, just like you do if a pitcher throws 9 innings, man. He's got to rest his arm a while. Well, you don't need to rest your voice for days, but you do need a good night's sleep. Really helps to freshen it up the next day again. I just find good sleep and good health. If you're healthy, everything's cool. If you ain't got a cold, if you ain't got something going on, but that makes it a little harder to sing. But if you get your rest at night, bam, it's there.
What's the one story over the years that just sticks out to you through this journey that you've been on?
1974, Las Vegas Hilton with Johnny Cash. To a lot of gospel fans back then, we sinned greatly because we played Vegas with Johnny Cash. He took us out there for 4 weeks, paid us, fed us, encouraged us. And he called us up to the suite one day and he said, guys, I know your heads are hanging right now because I can sense it. But you know what else I sense? There's magic here. I mean, real, honest to God, magic. If you guys give up on yourself, nobody will feel what I'm feeling right now. That there's magic in the Oak Ridge Boys. You will be one of the biggest acts there is in country music. You got to give it all you got and not give up. And we walked out of that room knowing we were going to make it because Johnny Cash said we would.
Yeah.
And then the very next year, 2 years later, here we are sitting at the Country Music Association Awards, and they give out Vocal Group of the Year. Johnny Cash is hosting. The hosting booth, hosting podium is to one side with Johnny behind it. And I forget who even said the Oak Ridge Boys over here on the left won the award. And we all ran up to Johnny instead. We didn't run to get the award. We ran and hugged Johnny. Because Cash was right. Hey, here we are. And that's what he said to us. I told you I was right. I miss the guy. I miss him every day. In fact, look. Ironically enough, I have a Johnny Cash shirt on.
That's awesome. What a great story.
Well, I'll tell you what that is. That's we did a big Johnny Cash event 2 years ago. They honored Johnny Cash at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland. And we went up there and took part in that. And we did the gospel segment. We talked about Johnny's love for gospel music and how
Nice.
many songs over the years that we'd recorded with Johnny gospel. And we sang some of those songs, and it was really a cool night. I got the
That's
T-shirt.
cool. That's cool. Yeah, that's what you always got to have the T-shirt from it.
I got the
That's so
T-shirt.
cool. Man, what a great time. I've enjoyed talking with you, Joe. Thanks for your time today, man. This has been
Thank you,
special.
Matthew. Thank you. Let's pray that God blesses our great world that we live in and our great nation, and gets us through all of this. I think that if we're listening right now, I think God has a message for us.
Yeah.
I don't
Sure.
think this is just happening for no reason at all. I think God's speaking to us, and I just pray that everybody's listening out there. And like I say, that pretty soon we'll all get back to at least a relative normal again, and we'll all be out there singing, every single one of us, including Legacy 5, including the Oak Ridge Boys. So
Yes,
God
sir.
bless you, and give my best to all your guys, man.
Yeah, I sure will. Now tell these folks before you sign off, tell these folks where they can get that book you mentioned earlier and where they can interact with you on social media.
Well, I'm on Twitter at Joe Bonsall, JoeBonsall. I tweet quite a bit. I'm not on Facebook or Instagram. Oak Ridge Boys are. OakRidgeBoys.com is our website, and at Oak Ridge Boys is Oak Ridge Boys Twitter. And you can get my book just by putting On the Road with the Oak Ridge Boys in the Amazon engine, and you'll see all my books there. But On the Road with the Oak Ridge Boys is the one we're talking about.
Great, man. Joe, thanks again for your time. I appreciate it. God bless you during this stay at home and quarantine. And I know that all the folks watching can't wait for the Oaks and all of their favorite artists to get back out on the road. Thank you so much, Joe.
Thank you, Matthew. God bless, brother.